everybody, welcome back. I'm so glad you're here. I hope your day has been going great, and if your day has not been going so well, that's okay. Let's relax and color away the stress of the day. So to begin, we're going to take our Girl Moments book. If you haven't seen this one yet, by Coco Wyo, it is super cute, super fun to color in, and we're going to be working on this page. So I'm just going to set it right here so we have it for reference. And if you haven't done so already, you're going to want to put a couple of sheets of paper behind the page so that if there's any marker bleed through, you won't ruin the pages on the other side. I just used 24-pound copy paper, so nothing fancy. I do use 2 sheets though, so just to make for sure that I'm not going to bleed any markers through onto the other page. So I'm going to use a combination of Tombow water-based markers and then also some King Art water-based markers. King Art you can find at Walmart. You can find them on Amazon too, but if you have a local Walmart, I go definitely pick up some there. And Tombow you can find all over the place. Tombow is definitely more expensive than King Art, but don't feel like you have to use the same brands I'm using or the exact same colors. Coloring should be fun and you should be able to express yourself however you want. So I'll give you, of course, all the color codes I'm using and all the brands I'm using, but please don't feel like you have to use everything the same that I'm using. Just have fun and pick out whatever colors and just have a great time coloring. So to begin, I'm going to work on this gray wall in the background. And to do that, I'm just going to use this Tombow Gray N95. Okay, so when it comes to picking my colors, I like to have some color swatches, and then I can take a look and see what's going to look good on the page. Generally, when I'm picking out my colors, I don't pick them all. So you see, this is the finished page, and it's got a whole bunch of different colors, but I didn't pick all of these initially. Obviously, I knew I wanted a gray wall, so I didn't really need color swatches much for that, because gray, this was just the gray I wanted to use. But everything else, I like to use color swatches and then just decide, you know, what colors look good together. Like, you know, does the purple look good with this turquoise? Or, you know, does this yellow look good with this blue? So I like to just sort of compare them and then just pick a couple of the main colors. And then from there, just sort of let the journey of the coloring page happen and pick out colors as I go to see what would look nice or what makes sense. So don't feel like you have to put all this pressure on yourself and pick all your colors at first. Just pick the main ones that you know you like and that are going to be for bigger areas, and then you can start to use the smaller areas to create accents of those colors, and it'll help to create a nice unified page. So we're going to start working on these little shutters next, and for that I want to use this 623. One of the reasons why I've chosen to use water-based on this page instead of alcohol is because with water-based markers you get these really nice lines. Tombow won't actually give you those lines if you color slowly because they're a really high quality marker, but if you color quickly you can get the lines, and that's what I'm going for because I want a lot of texture, and water-based markers is really great for that. So if you're trying to get texture, just use some water-based markers. You can see it's already creating a really nice texture. Now, of course, I'm going to go over this and add some shadows and highlights, but it's really nice to just have a background texture to start with because it can just help bring your page to life and just give you a more unique look. Now, if you want to color this whole page with alcohol markers, of course, feel free. This is your page. You decide how you want it to look and what markers you want to use. Just for me, I just decided I really wanted to have a lot of texture happening on this page, and so that's why I've chosen some water-based markers. I forgot these little hinges, so I'm just going to add the gray to the hinges as well. So next, on my color swatches, what I would do is pick the color for the house coat. So we've got a nice warm purple, so I want to make sure that the color of the house coat is also warm. So I think I'm going to go with this 673. For these little flowers, I want to color them in purple. Let's also do her little hair clip scrunchie. This way we're tying in our shutters, which are here, into other parts on the page, which helps to create a cohesive look. So this is when I'm going to use my King art. This is the Pale Plum 143, and I want to use this for the ruffly part of her house coat. Okay, so next I want to color this part of the window frame, and I'm just going to use this 676. And then we're going to use 126, this green color, for all of the greenery. And then we're going to use 850 for the skin color. And then 451 for the curtains. And also for this little mug. And the bluebird. And then we're going to use 528 for background behind this curtain. Have you ever been coloring a page and then realized that you forgot something because you didn't realize it was a part of something else? Well, you were not alone, because I just forgot this. For some reason, it didn't dawn on me that that was the other paw for this kitten. As long as you find it before you call the page done, it's okay. So we'll just get his little paw done. There we go. Whenever you're coloring blonde hair, which I want her hair to be blonde but have like these reddish tones as like some nice depth and shadows, but whenever you do blonde hair, don't color it yellow, because technically blonde hair isn't actually bright yellow unless someone has intentionally dyed it that color, but that's pretty rare. Most natural blondes have like a creamy yellowish base, but not like a cool yellow base, which is what this is. So we're gonna just color the underneath color this, and then with pencil crayons I'm going to add in the colors that I actually want her hair to have. And it'll give it some nice depth and dimension and just fit in with the overall theme of the page. So her hair is going to look kind of ugly for right now, but that's okay. We will send this little girl to the salon and we'll get the right colors added to her hair. Okay, and then I want to color in the tree with this base color. This is 990, and again, this is just an underneath color. And then as you can see in the finished, I'm going to add some highlights and some shadows to really make it come to life, but I just want an overall light beige base color to start with, and this is the perfect one. So if you have a beige like this, then grab it and let's use it for this part. I really love how these water-based markers give a nice linear texture to the tree trunk. It just puts these really cool lines in it that may or may not be there in the end result, but I like having them there initially, and if I want to keep them I can, and if I need to shadow over them I can. The choice is mine, but it's nice that it's not always just perfectly smooth, because unless someone's been out there sanding it, generally wood is not smooth, and I want it to have that texture and feel a little more earthy. I think I'm also going to take the same color that I used for her hair and also color these little eggs with it. As you can see in the final, this is just a base color, but I like the warmth that it brings. Okay, so now I'm going to take this 992, which is a nice brown, and I'm going to color in the kitten and the nest. Another nice thing with water-based markers is that if you have to go stop and do something, maybe someone's at the door or you're cooking, you can just stop and it's okay. You just pick up where you left off, whereas with alcohol, if you stop, you might end up with a big streak on your page because alcohol isn't quite as forgiving with starting and stopping, whereas water-based really doesn't care. So if you know you're going to be interrupted many times while coloring, then probably a good idea to pick water-based markers to color with. Unless you want streaks, sometimes it's what you want for your texture, and if that's the case, then it doesn't matter if alcohol markers streak, but if that's a concern for you, then definitely use water-based, because I could get up right now, walk away, come back, and this won't have changed. I can just continue adding to it and everything's gonna look perfect. Okay, so now we're gonna work on the little stars, and I'm gonna start out with 055. And then once the little stars have dried, then what I wanna do is create an outline. And this is 025. It's important to wait for the stars to dry, because otherwise you're going to get a lot of bleeding, and that's not what I want. Okay, so the marker layer is complete. For those that just like to use markers, then this can be it. You can be done and call the page complete, but for those who want to do a whole bunch of highlighting, like I do with the example page here, that's what I'm going to show you how to do next. So we're going to get out our pencil crayons, or some people call them colored pencils. That's the exact same thing. And we're going to create this effect on this page. Okay, so the marker layer is complete, and now what I want to do is move into adding all of the highlights and shadows. And you can see there's quite a bit happening on this page with highlights and shadows. Don't be scared, it's really not as hard as it looks. Sometimes when you see the finished product, it looks overwhelming, but we're gonna take it one step at a time, and I'll show you just how easy it is and how much fun it is to watch everything just pop into life on your page. So if you have some colored pencils or pencil crayons, get those out, and we're gonna start working with those next. So I have a case of Prismacolors. I saved and saved and saved my pennies so that I could get a nice set, and of course waited for a giant sale on Amazon because that helps. But please don't feel like you have to own all of these pencil crayons. This is just what I saved for a really long time to get a nice set. But we're only going to use a few colors, and I'll put the colors in the description, so that way you don't feel like you have to go buy a whole set. And you can really use any pencil crayons that you want. I use Prismacolors just because they are softcore and they're really fun for building and shading when you want to build color on top of color. But for this page, we're not going to be doing a whole lot of color building, more just shadowing and shading. But please don't feel like you have to own the entire Prismacolor set, because you really don't. We're just going to use a few colors, and that's all we're going to use. So first we want to figure out where our light is coming from. So in this picture, I've decided to have a light source come from here, as if the sun is up and it's shining through a tree. So we're going to have some light kind of flickering across the page onto different elements. So what I want to start with first are these gray areas. And when it comes to lighting and shadow, it's not super complicated. Of course, you can take courses and it can get complicated, but for the purpose of these coloring books, really you just want to remember to use my hand, for example, as an object. You have light coming from this direction, you've got light on this side, dark on this side. So whenever you're working on your page, just think of everything as in one side's going to have light and one side's going to have dark. And for the most part, that's going to get you where you need to be. If you're struggling with a certain part where you're like, I'm just not sure how to get the lighting just right with the shadowing and highlights, work on all the other parts of the page that come easier to you first. And then when you get to the part that seemed harder, it'll probably seem a lot easier at that point, because all of the other elements that kind of fit together like puzzle pieces as to light and shadows will already be in place, and it'll help you figure out how to do the lighting and shadows on the piece that you were struggling with. So first I want to take this Prismacolor PC1063, and it is a 50% cool gray, and I just want to add some shadows that are a little more on the lighter side to define some of the shadowing areas. If you're, again, new to doing shadows, if you start with a lighter color first, then it can help you figure out how and where you want your shadows without feeling so committed. And that's one of the reasons why I like using pencil crayons for shadowing over markers, because markers, there's not a whole lot of options to undo when it comes to light and shadows. So you're kind of just stuck with whatever you chose, and if it's wrong, now it's wrong. But with pencil crayons, you can get away with a lot more. So if you're new to doing shadows, then I would definitely recommend starting with pencil crayons first. So we're going to add some shadow from this shutter. And if you don't get the shadow exactly right, the world is not going to end. Again, this is like your art, and you want to express it however you want. And some people intentionally do shadows wrong, so you know, just have fun with it. Try not to stress out, just enjoy the process. And if you learn some things, great. And if you make mistakes, it's actually even better because that's how you learn even more cool things. So don't feel like mistakes are a huge failure. You're not a failure. It's just part of the process of learning and having fun with experimenting with different art tools, and just really try to relax and just have a good time while you're coloring. I know there's been some pages that I've done where I finished it, posted it on social media, only to realize I forgot to do shadows in one or more places that really should have had a shadow. And you know what? The world continued moving forward. It was okay. It wasn't the end of the world. I don't think anyone noticed. No one messaged it in the comments. So I wouldn't worry about it. If you miss one or two spots, it's okay. Just have fun and just enjoy the whole experience of coloring, which is what it should be, just a fun, relaxing way to get rid of all the stress that you've had to deal with today. So I'm actually making the shadow a bit thicker around this shutter. And because it's not just sort of a thin line right next to the edge of the shutter, it gives the impression that the shutter's forward a little bit. It's not just flush against the wall. And again, no right or wrong. If you want it flush against the wall, just do a thin gray line. But for this page, I kind of felt like I wanted it to have a little bit more of a shadow right in here, make it look like the shutter's coming out a little bit. Okay, and then I want to definitely color this in because this is way too light, especially with all these leaves up here. Maybe just add a little bit of shadow right here, and then on the back side of these hinges. And I'm not pressing very hard. One of the really nice things with Prismacolor pencil crayons is that you don't have to press hard to make color appear on the page. And that's really important. If you're coloring a lot, eventually you're going to get a lot of wear and tear on your hands. And it's important that you take care of the tools that you're using to have fun coloring with. So, you know, just like you would take care of your markers to store them correctly and your pencil crayons, all of your tools, your hands are also a really important tool. So take care of them and make sure that whatever tools you're using, they're not going to cause you any kind of like repetitive motion injuries or anything like that. That's one of the reasons why I choose my markers very carefully. Sometimes they're not the cheapest marker. Sometimes they're not the most expensive. They're right in the middle. It just depends what markers I happen to be using that day. But I can assure you that all of them have caps that come off easily. Because if I'm struggling with a cap on a marker, now I'm struggling putting all this wear and tear on my joints, and how many times am I going to be pulling a cap off and putting it back on a marker? It just doesn't make sense to put all that wear and tear when really if the manufacturer had just made the caps a little bit better quality, that issue would be completely gone. You will find any markers I recommend, the caps are very easy to remove. Because to me, that's very important. Also, if they're a struggle to get off, when you pull the cap off, if you're using a brush tip, sometimes the cap will bump the brush tip and then it will splatter ink all across your page. And now you've got this giant mess that you have to figure out how to clean up after you've just spent all these hours working on this beautiful page that you made. And I don't think that's fair. So I'm all for the markers that just have nice, easy remove caps and play nice when you try to work with them. So I've just added 70% cool gray, so this is the PC 1065, and I'm just coming in to make some of the darker spots a little bit darker because I want this to be a little more defined. And I don't think I'm actually going to end up putting any pencil crayon here, which again, another reason why it's nice that I was using water-based, because look at that beautiful texture that it created, and now I'm going to keep it. The texture this made, obviously we didn't keep it because we're shadowing over it, but at least we got to keep that texture and it's gorgeous. Now this part of the shutter shadow that's closest to the shutter should be darker because less light is happening to get through. So less light is actually ending up in this little spot, whereas more light's hitting this spot. So we just want to make that a little bit darker, and it's not only going to look better for the shutter, but it's also going to help make it pop off the page. Sometimes I joke that you need to have protective eyewear when you're coloring because as you add your shadows, things start to pop out. Don't let them hit you in the eye. I know, I'm silly. But you know what? Coloring should be fun and silly. We all need to have a good time. And just relax. Just enjoy the process. Alright, I am really liking the shadow on this shutter. And I think I'm going to darken this up a little more, but just where the leaves would cause the shadows to happen. So if the light's coming this way, there's going to be a little bit of a cast shadow from these top leaves. And as I create that cast shadow, it's also going to help them to kind of pop off the page. Okay, and then the last one I want to use for these grays is this Cool Gray 90%, the 1067, and I just want to come through some of these extra dark areas. So I know we added some dark already, but I just want to amp it up just a little bit more. Okay, so now that we have that done, I think I want to add a little bit of shadowing in here, just because this is pretty bright for that spot. So I'm just going to go back to the lightest gray, the 50%, and I'm just going to gently color in a little bit of light gray just to make this a bit darker. So now what I want to do is work on the shutters. So this shutter is coming out, so I want to actually shadow the whole thing, and then we'll do a little bit of some darker cast shadows on it. So this is the PC1008, and I'm just going to darken this whole shutter. You see how nice it is that we have that base color and marker? Man, I could be here for hours just trying to color this in with pencil crayons if it wasn't for that base color. And then too, we get that nice texture that's still coming through from the base color, which just makes the shutters look better. And then where the wood of the shadow would create just a tiny bit of a cast shadow, we're going to add that. And then we want a little bit of a cast shadow from these leaves. Okay, and then from the hinges. And then now for this shutter, we're going to add a little bit of cast shadow in the interior line. Every now and again, you got to sharpen your pencils. If you haven't seen these pencil sharpeners, Fiskars makes them, and they are amazing because they slide to a close and it keeps all your shavings inside. If you toss this in a bag, you're not going to have to worry about having pencil shavings all over your bag or all over your purse. It does such a great job. So now we want to add green for all of the leaves. So we get to have a little more fun with this because light's kind of coming in from maybe between leaves, and so it's not going to be exactly the same on every single leaf, and they're also angled differently. So we can have a little more fun with this and just let our imagination kind of go wild for how we want it to look. I'm not sure if I like that green, so I'm going to try a different one and see if I like it better. Yeah, I think I like this one better. So again, the beauty of pencil crayons is I can change my mind. And for this area, I can just color over it, or I can use this Scholar Prismacolor eraser, and I can just erase. It is the coolest eraser I have ever owned. Okay, so I am using the olive green PC911, and let's add our shadows. So with the leaves, just try to imagine the shape of the leaf and which part of the leaf is going to have light hitting it and which part would be in shadow. And as you imagine, just color in the shadow parts. And if you're paying attention to my example on the left, you may notice that my shadows don't look exactly the same. They might be close, but they probably won't be exactly the same because when I do light and shadows, although you do kind of want to get it right, there's a lot of just feeling how it should be. And whatever mood I'm in today may not be the same mood I was in when I first colored this, so I might be feeling a little more creative today and want to go a little more extreme with my shadows and have a little more moodiness to it. Just have fun with it and kind of feel out where you want the shadows to be. With plants, it's fun to add shadows because you can kind of decide where you want the shadow to be. Like I made it a little bit heavier here in the shadow, which means that maybe the leaf curls here and kind of dips down. You know, you get to decide what you want for your page, so just try to think of it that way and don't get too caught up on right and wrong. Just enjoy the coloring and look for where you want it to be a little bit darker, maybe to indicate that something is further away in shadow, it's curled. Okay, so that looks good for those. Now I'm going to work on this tree. The more you practice doing shadows, the more your brain will start to tell you, hey, maybe we should put some shadow here. That would look really cool. And if you get it wrong, don't worry about it. That's how we learn. We all learn from when we get it wrong. So just chalk it up to learning experience, and your brain will say, okay, we don't want to do it that way next time, so try a different way. We can all just enjoy the journey of learning how to do different coloring techniques. Okay, and then I just want to take this chartreuse PC 989 and I just want to add it in some of these highlight areas just to make them pop a little more. And then at the end we'll of course add some actual jelly roll highlights, but I like to add some highlights with pencil crayons just because it gives it a little more depth and dimension than just, you know, putting a jelly roller across this and calling it a day. Which you can do if you want to, but I always like just adding a little bit of something extra. And you'll notice in my coloring pages, I'm not in a huge hurry to get done. I want to enjoy the time that I've set aside to do this, so I'm not in a big hurry. I'm not trying to win any races or knock it out before I have to stop coloring again. If I have to stop and pick up again, that's okay. I just want to enjoy the time that I've planned to set aside to do this. So I like to just let the page take me in a bunch of different directions and just enjoy the process. There, that really helped these little guys to pop out a little more. Okay, so we're pretty far along in our page, and you know we've only used 6 pencil crayon colors. So again, you don't need to own a whole set of 200 and something, although it's very appealing when you see it online and they offer these big kits, but you don't need to own that many to make your pages look amazing. Just a few key colors and you can get the job done. So I'm going to try this PC 919 and see if I like it for the curtains. This is kind of a lighter blue, and I'm just not sure if I want to use this one or a darker one or both. So we're going to just test it and see what we think. And then I'm going to take this True Blue PC 903 and see if I like it as a shadow pencil. Here's some of these darker shadows. So now we'll do the other side. And then let's also color in the mug. And let's also work on this little bluebird. So now let's work on her hair. I'm just using this goldenrod PC 1034. So we're going to send this girl to the salon and we're going to work on her hair. And then we're going to use a darker color, Burnt Ochre, PC943. And now our last layer, Terracotta, PC944. I'm also going to add some yellow ochre. So I'm just using this seashell pink, which is PC1093. It's actually giving me more of a grayish tone. I don't think I want to use that one. So I'm going to use this one instead. This is Peach 939. That is much better. She's looking healthier already. I guess technically she could have the flu looking out this window, but I don't really want that for this page. And then we're going to use this Nectar color, PC1092. It's going to help smooth the skin tone and also just blend everything nicely together. And I'm going to use this blush pink, which is PC928. I'm just going to give her some rosy little cheeks. Alright, so let's work on this little kitten. He kind of looks like he doesn't belong now because he's just so flat compared to everything else around him. So let's shade him in. Color in this kitten, just using chocolate PC1082. So for the tree, you can see I've got some light pops coming in here and there and then some shadows. This is just what came into my mind as I was thinking of coloring it. It doesn't have to be the same as mine, so just use creative freedom and just have fun with it and just imagine where you would think light and shadows would exist in your world. And I'm also going to use this light umber, PC941, to just add a little more color variation to the tree. So now we're going to use this Canary Yellow, PC916, and Yellowed Orange, PC102. And we're going to use this Mulberry color for her house coat. And then pink, PC929 for the rest of the house coat. And then Process Red, PC994. And I'm going to take this purple again and just add some shadows where they need to be. I think I want to use this Lilac, PC956 as well, just to soften these little flowers a little bit. And I'm going to take pink and add some little speckles to the eggs. And then we're going to use this Nectar color, PC1092, to add some shadow. And then this Beige Sienna 1080 to add a little more shadow. Okay, so now what I want to do is add some highlights. And There's a couple of things that I did on this page originally. I used a yellow neon Prismacolor pencil, and then where I wanted the highlight to be really intense, then I took a Jelly Roll Moonlight Bold in yellow. So first I'm going to start with the pencil crayon. So this is the neon yellow PC 1035. So I realized that I forgot to add this little shadow of this leaf, so let's do that before we get too much further along. I'm just going to draw in shape, and take your time, there is no rush. And remember, you don't have to be an amazing artist to get this right, we're just giving the idea of a shadow here. Okay, so now let's continue adding our yellow. And the reason why I'm using yellow instead of white is because this is early sun and it would be pretty yellow. It wouldn't be so white. White would have too much of a contrast and it would take away from all of the beautiful colors and shading and stuff that we did on this page. What you could do is actually start with the yellow before you color anything else. I've done that before with markers and it works fine. I feel like you're pretty committed, and although you can go over your yellow with something else, sometimes I kind of like to let the page tell me a bit more about where the highlights should be. I don't like to decide them all in the beginning, so sometimes I prefer just doing these highlights at the end. You can see the yellow isn't super intense, and that's exactly what I want. Some areas I will make it intense and I'll use the Jelly Roller for that, but not every spot on the page needs to be screaming bright yellow. Okay, so we're going to use this Sakura Bold 10 in yellow, and we're just going to add some highlights to these leaves. And anywhere else where we think we might want to add a nice bright highlight. Alright, well that completes this video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I hope you enjoyed relaxing, having a lot of fun coloring with me, and if you like my video, be sure to subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and share with others so that they can enjoy this wonderful, relaxing hobby just like we all do. Thanks for watching, and have a great rest of your day. Bye guys!